Okay, I'm recording. Let's get to it. All right, so I have a question here. I want to start with example 6. Basically, this is just an example from your books. We're on page 592. Okay, and we're just gonna use our rules of exponents as well as the raising each side of an equation to the nth power rule that you find on 589. Basically, all you have to do is that whenever you have an equation, a radical equation that has a radical on either side, the way to get rid of that radical is by raising it to whatever the power of the radical is. Now it's a little bit laggy, but hopefully you guys can still see what I'm doing. Okay, so basically all you have to do here is that you see the radical 3t plus 1 equals 2 minus radical 3t. Okay, what we want to do is raise each side by a power of 2. Okay, and what that'll do is that will go ahead and cancel out the radical here, and it'll also cancel out the radical here. But remember, the algebra rules state that whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the complete other side. Okay, so you have to do it to this complete other side, not only to the radical, you do it to the complete other side. Now, remember that when we're dealing with radicals and squaring square roots, you always end up with two answers just naturally, right? Because a negative value times itself will be a positive value, but we're only focusing on the principal nth root. So since we're only focusing on the principal nth root, only the positive value will be there, okay? And you don't even have to think about that. Just think of, just understand that when you square a square root, at least for our class's purposes, we will only have the positive value, okay? So this and this will cancel out, which will leave me with 3t plus 1, okay? And on this side, we'll do the same exact thing, but this side's a little bit different because now we have the square of a binomial, right? So this right here is gonna be a binomial. This is a binomial. So whenever we square a binomial, what we have to do is FOIL, right? So we're gonna have to FOIL. So we're gonna have to multiply this times this, this times this, and this times this, and this times this, and this times this. So let's go ahead and FOIL it quickly, and I'll go ahead and do that just like right under here. Basically, this is gonna be this times 2 minus the cube root of 3t. Okay, and if we do that, we do first times first, so we're gonna end up with 4, and then 2 minus 2 square root of 3t, and then this times this, which is another minus 2 square root of 3t, and then negative square root of 3t times negative square root of 3t, which you will end up with a positive, but also let's see, when we multiply those, let's just keep it in the square root for now. Whatever's inside the square root will multiply to itself. So you'll basically get 3 times 3, which is 9t squared. Okay. Let me just double check that. And yes. Okay. Okay, good. All right, so we'll get this 9t squared. Now, we can simplify this. Okay, so when we simplify this, we're basically going to combine like terms. You have this -2 and then -2 square root of 3t. So you can combine these two here. You can combine those two, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So we still have this 4 minus 4 square root of 3t. Now plus the square root of 9t squared. Basically, you can take the square root of this value inside here. You can take the square root of 9. The square root of 9 is going to go ahead and just be 3. And you can take the square root of t squared, whatever's the square root is going to cancel with that square, okay? And we're only going to keep the positive value, obviously. So we're just going to end up here with 3t, okay? So we have 4 minus 4 square root of 3t plus 3t. All right, so this is what we have so far. Now, we're not done. And this is why I wanted to do this problem, because at least in the Khan Academy, there were no questions where you had to keep on keep on raising a power. Okay, so here we have another power being another radical that we're going to need to get rid of. So to be able to get rid of that radical, we're going to have to once again raise each side to the squared power, okay? But before we do that, let's go ahead and let's like get rid of everything that we can that's not the radical. So to be able to do that, let's go ahead and let's subtract 4 from both sides, and let's subtract 3t from both sides, okay? All right, and when we do that, we're now gonna isolate this by itself, okay? And we're also gonna end up getting rid of this 3t here. So this is 1 minus 4 is just gonna end up 3 equals negative 4 square root of 3t, okay? And then once we have that, now we can go ahead and we can raise each side to the second power, okay? So we wanna raise this side, this whole thing, to the second power, and we can't just raise the radical, okay? That goes against algebraic rules. So whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the complete other side. We'll end up with 9 equals, and then we're just gonna distribute this square in here, okay? Basically, since it's 2 things being multiplied together, you're gonna end up with negative 4 squared, which is gonna be 16, and then square root of 3t squared. And we'll just go ahead and write it like that, times square root of 3t squared. Okay, and if you have the square root of 3t squared, you know that this is going to cancel out. This square root is going to cancel out with that. So you're going to end up with 9 equals 16 times 3t. Okay, and if you go ahead and multiply that together, 16 times 3t, I don't have my calculator, but I'll just go ahead and use my phone. So 16 times 3 is going to give me 48. So I'll have 48t equals 9. Divide both sides by 48. Divide both sides by 48. These both are divisible by 3. So you're going to end up with 3 over 48 divided by 3, which is just what we did right here. It's going to be 16 equals t. So t equals 3 over 16. Okay, and that's your final answer. So what I wanted to show you with this problem with example 6 is that you're going to be doing these problems, if you haven't already, on Khan, where you have to raise each side to a specific power. It could have been a cube root. You would still have to raise it to the cubed power. Okay, so you have to make sure that you first of all know what you're raising it to, and you're just going to figure that out by looking at whatever root it is, right? But also, one second. But also, you want to go ahead and make sure that if there's another radical left, you don't just think, okay, that's my final answer. No, to be able to isolate this t, you had to raise it again. Okay, so understand you may have to raise it twice, you may have to raise it 3 times. It depends on how the problem is set up. Okay, so the final answer for this is 3 over 16. Now let's go ahead and let's do this one. This one's pretty simple, except we end up using a quadratic. So let's go ahead and do this. While I'm doing these problems, even though we're on a Zoom call, go ahead and work these out also in your notebooks, okay? So make sure that whenever we're doing a Zoom call, you guys are also working these out. And if you're watching the video, make sure that you're working these out also. Okay, so we have the square root of x plus 2 equals x. We know what we have to do. basically have to square both sides, okay? Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other, because we have that radical. Remember that when you have a radical without a number, it's just a square root. So we're gonna square both sides, and then we're gonna understand that this is also a binomial. Okay, so since it's a binomial, we're gonna have to FOIL. Okay, a super common mistake, which I guarantee almost all of us will make at some point, is that we'll just distribute this square over here, okay? And we'll write, okay, well, this is just gonna be square root of x squared, so that's gonna be x, and we'll write that's 2 squared is 4, so we'll say this equals that, okay? This right here is super wrong, okay? This is wrong, do not do that, okay? This is a binomial, which means you have to multiply as a binomial, right? FOIL, okay? You're going to have to FOIL. And we're gonna go ahead and do that now. So to be able to FOIL, you wanna go ahead and do the square root of x times the square root of x, which is just gonna be x, okay? Plus square root of x times 2, which is 2 square root of x, plus 2 times square root of x, which is 2 square root of x, plus 2 times 2, which is just gonna be 4, equals whatever was on the other side, which is x squared, okay? Simplify. If you go ahead and simplify, now we're gonna be done soon. If you guys have another Zoom call, you can go ahead and sign out now. If you don't, just stay on, and we're gonna be done really soon, and I'll cut off the video. We're gonna go ahead and simplify. We have x plus 4 square root of x plus 4 equals x squared. Now, how do we solve this? The only way to solve this is to go ahead and solve using a quadratic, how we solve quadratic equations, right? By factoring. Okay, so to be able to solve this, we're gonna actually have to move this negative x, we're gonna have to move this x squared over here, and we're gonna end up with negative x squared plus x plus 4 square root of x plus 4 equals 0. And I actually think that I went ahead of myself. Where did I make the mistake here? Because you have 2, okay. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I guess the first mistake that I made was all the way up here, and I'll just go ahead and I'll finish it off in the video that I sent to you guys. What you need to do is, instead of foiling this, okay, you wanted to go ahead and move this 2 to the other side first. All right, so to be able, you can still solve this, okay? You're just gonna have to square it again to get rid of this x value in the radical. But the first thing you wanted to go ahead and do is move this 2 over here. So you wanted to make it a way that you have square root of x equals x minus 2. And that actually makes your life a lot easier. So then you don't have to FOIL radicals and do this whole thing. Okay, so this is wrong, but you can go ahead and finish it. In fact, I'm gonna finish it really, really fast so you guys can see, okay? All right, so same exact thing. You wanna square. Here you'll end up with just x equals, and then this is going to get FOILed, so you'll have x squared minus 2x plus 4. Okay, sorry for the mess. Then you go ahead and you subtract x. You combine like terms, right? And that'll give you x equals x squared minus 4x plus 4. We're going to subtract x from both sides. So you have x squared minus 5x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, now you want to factor, okay? So to be able to factor this, yeah, okay, so to be able to factor this, what you want to do is basically just ask yourself what 2 things multiplied together are going to equal 4 and added together are going to equal -5, okay? And to be able to do that, we have to think, let's see, what are they? What are they going to be? 1 and 4. I think that's the only thing, right? So if you have -1 and -4, okay, -1 times -4 is going to equal 4. -1 plus -4 is going to equal -5. So you just have your x minus 1, x minus 4 equals 0. You go ahead and solve, and you realize that x equals 1 and x equals 4. And then those are your final two answers. Now, super important, the last thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is that whenever you get answers from radical equations, you want to go ahead and always check them, okay? Because there's something called extraneous solutions. And if there are extraneous solutions, basically one of these answers is going to check out and the other one's not going to check out, okay? If we do this, we will see that x equals 1 is an extraneous solution. So the only actual solution that you have is going to be x equals 4, okay? And that's basically it. Whenever you solve these radicals, remember, raise both sides, the entire both sides, to whatever power the root is, and also check for extraneous solutions at the end, okay? So I went ahead and I finished the sharing. Are we good? Give me a thumbs up if you kind of understood, if you were able to follow along. You're going to be able to rewatch this. So yeah. All right, guys, we're done. If you have any questions, just email me or message me on Edmodo, okay? All right, guys, take care. I miss you guys a lot. Be safe.